'Cause the memories are mine.
All right, today we're talking about a heavy tune. This is an interesting song. We're talking about "Forget Me Not." Now, the original plan, way back when Hudson Avenue started, which this song predates Hudson Avenue, was that this was going to be the B-side to "Wrong Turn" and the first single released. That's probably why it appears on Volume 1 right after "Wrong Turn." Full disclosure, I don't listen to this song when it comes on in a mix or when I was listening to everything that was going on, like as I was working on it or when the project was finished. And usually if it ever comes on when I leave music on for the dogs or something like that, I skip it. Not because I don't like the song, because I don't like the way it was recorded. I rushed the recording of it. The vocals sound weird. I hadn't figured out how to do recording fingerpick guitars with my equipment yet, so it sounds a little weird. It's picked and it's direct, and but the song resonates with a lot of people, and I'll tell you why. Because it deals with two incredibly real things that at some point in all of our lives we have to deal with. And that is the loss of a loved one to dementia or Alzheimer's or even extreme old age, when a person gets to an age where they start to become forgetful. It deals with alcoholism, and it deals with two very important people in my life that I have unfortunately had to say goodbye to. So when I sat down to have the idea, it was a long, long time ago, around 2017 probably, when I wanted to write a song about my grandmother who passed away in January of 2021, who had been suffering from Alzheimer's for a long time. You know, she had long since forgotten who I was. I don't believe that she remembered who my mother was, and I don't know for how long. But that's what it was about. It was about this relationship between the two of them. And for those of you that don't know me that well, before I moved to Florida, I did 2 years at a nursing home in Elizabeth. And I spent a lot of time in the unit that was specifically for Alzheimer's and dementia. So I have a great deal of experience in that world as well. So I had sat down to try to write a song about everything that had kind of been going on with my grandmother and my mother. And originally I wanted to just write the whole thing about my grandmother, but that wasn't working. And so after some conversations with some friends of mine at work, and thinking more along the lines of other things that are going on, because at this point now, when I had written the first verse and chorus, like always, it told the story so well about everything that was going on up into the "Forget Me Not," right? So I didn't know where else to go, and I was talking to friends of mine at work, and I had recently been sober. I'd been sober a couple of years, and started thinking about, like, well, what if I hadn't gotten sober, right? What if I just kept drinking and say my wife left me and my kids didn't want to have anything to do with me? And so I kind of took on this character who, fascinatingly enough, and this is probably my favorite part of the song as a writer, not as a person that even performs it, but just as a writer, is that instead of it just being a drunkard in the second verse that's just drunk for the sake of drunk, we actually step into this person's world in a moment of clarity. So he is at a bar and he is actively drinking, and he is thinking about the consequences of all of those things. So instead of it being just this nonsense of drunkenness, it is the moment he realizes how badly he may have messed up the relationship, yet how much, when he is sober, he actually cares about it, which probably keeps him drinking. And not just with my own personal thoughts and feelings about looking into the future of that, but there are a handful of people in my family that maybe have struggled harder than I have with sobriety and substance abuse. And my Uncle Scott, who comes to mind, kind of got lost in the world there for a little bit. And in December of 21, he passed away. And I think about, even as his nephew, how great our relationship was and how strained it had become when drugs and alcohol became more important. And I can only imagine how hard that is for his children and his grandchildren. So when I married these two ideas together and thought about it, I came up with this whole idea behind, let's have someone who is forgetful and forgetting everything, and then someone else who's trying to forget. And when I got the news that my grandmother had passed away, and I was on a plane up to Pennsylvania for the funeral, I write a lot on the plane. I'll open my notes on my phone and write how I'm feeling or an idea or something like that. And I just was thinking about her so much. I lived with my grandparents when I first moved to Florida, and I was very close to them. And up until this point, even if you watch the video on YouTube, there's no third verse. The song was never meant to have a happy ending, as it were. So it was always meant to go through the chorus of, but the memories are mine, right? And then, I'll give you all you have, give me all you've got, promise me you'll be mine. That's just how the song would end live. Anytime I would play it, I would end it there, because it's up to us. It's up to the people that are affected by these diseases to end it, to wrap it up, to find peace in where it goes. And so just this meant to be unresolved. But I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't stop thinking while I was on this flight about everything that was going on and everything that had gone on, and how, if I think about how the first verse is about my mother and my grandmother, well, what about me and my grandmother? And what about these moments where, I was 39, right? 38, 39 maybe. And I had the benefit of knowing my grandmother that long, and that's a beautiful thing. And so that's where the third verse came up, and there's a little bit of optimism. I see pictures in an album, they bring back yesterdays, days, and suddenly it hits me how you showed so many ways that you loved me like my mother. That's no surprise, right? And the joyousness. I know every single one of us has stories we could share, and the tears turn into laughter, and the laughter fills the air, and that's just how it should be. That's how you live a life, right? So I was glad that when it came time to sit down for the project, to do it for real, to make it exist as it does in the real world now, that there was closure. It's right to have closure. It's right for me to be able to write that for myself, but also write it for any audience that would be listening to it, because it hurts, but it's going to be okay. Let's talk about this chord progression. I'm capo 6. I'm way up there. But in G formation, putting me, in D flat. But in reality, it's just the D with this hammer on the B string. And then we go to E minor. And we put our ring finger on the E string there. C. Walk down to A minor. D sustained. And then the chorus is C at 9, right? Into a D over B, essentially, something like that. This G string is ringing out. And then this C formation D chord. Now, one of the cool things about this, and I will say whenever I sat, because I didn't want it just, oh my God, it's all just so sad and it's the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to have this small little solo section where we kind of we get to take a break from the heaviness of it. And Larry, in his just beautiful talent, had introduced me to the minor 9. Gorgeous chord. When we were playing together and doing shows, and you can hear him play this chord if you listen to Every Now and Then on Behind These Shades Live. In a different key, of course, but I went, man, that chord is so beautiful, what is it? And so he showed it to me. And so when the solo section comes along, there's a guitar solo and the strings start to move. It's an E minor 9, C major 7, D. And that brings us back into, I know every single one of us have stories we could share. I've taken up a lot of time. I'm not going to break this one down with the computer. I was so worried about having to perform this song live, and because it is too heavy. I don't want to slow people down. I don't want to make them have to think too much, but I gave it a go, and it had a lot of people talk to me about this song. So this song is very special. It is very special to me. It is a song that kind of keeps me on the path as well. And to know where it came from and who it's about, and to have that third verse that wraps everything up, makes me feel a lot better about it. So, Hudson Avenue Volume 1, Track 2, dedicated to not just my grandmother and my uncle, but my mother and myself and my children and my niece and my dear friend from work, and everyone who has had to be forgotten at some point. So thank you for listening. All right, don't forget to just keep listening, because the song after that is, well, it's not so much more hopeful, but it's definitely not as sad.